Hey guys, welcome to David versus Film. I am David, yo soy David, and tonight I am spilling the peach tea on your comments for The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. And honestly, I don't even want to begin, because to begin this video means that it is officially the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy for me, the end of our journey together watching this. I don't even know what to say. When I first started watching Lord of the Rings, I've kind of mentioned this to you guys before, I honestly wasn't that excited. I didn't know what was to come. I knew very little about the series, and I would have never in a million years guessed that it would have hit me in the feels the way that it did, specifically this movie. I kind of got a feeling after Fellowship that we were headed down this road, that this was going to end in tears for David, and I think this was the first, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure this was the first film series that brought a tear to this dry tear duct that you see before you. But yeah, and I mean, how could I not? We'll get into that in a second. But if you guys saw the previous Spilling the Peach Tea videos, you'll know that this terminology is based on the fact that I drink peach tea, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, with every video that I usually watch. And it's also just a common colloquialism about, you know, kind of telling the truth on something. So it's just a way of me to get into more details with your amazing comments. You guys have just been, I mean, I don't even know how to put it into words. It just blows my mind, what you guys have written in these comments, what I've learned from you, what you've taught me. And it was the exact reason that I wanted to do film series reactions on the channel, because there's no way I would have learned as much as I have had it not been for all of you. So anyway, as with the previous videos, I have pulled this time 7 or 8, I think I ended up with 22 total comments from each part of the Return of the King. I had divided the movie into 3 parts to make sure I included as much as I could. We'll also get into that in a little bit about the content I was able to include and the content I was not able to include, thanks to YouTube standards. But anyway, so that's kind of how we're going to do things. It's going to be a lot like the other two. I'm going to try not to get emotional because this is just taking me by surprise. I got to tell you, I've really been shocked at my reaction to this. I never, ever would have thought that even if I liked it, it would have had this much of an emotional impact on me. But from what you guys have said, the same holds true for a lot of you. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Starting with James Cochrane. I'm so glad you chose to react to these films because it's how I found you. I've been since enjoying getting up to speed with your Harry Potter videos. As a reactor, you have stood out to me for various reasons. Your disclaimer before each reaction, you're calling out other reactors for obviously faking it, but mostly what you choose to show in the edit. It's absolutely spot on from my perspective. Thank you. So often creators don't even include key moments, which should warrant a reaction. You just seem to pick up on every little thing a viewer should, which is so important in my eyes. Cheers. Thank you so much. Several of you wrote this, and as I said in the previous Spilling the Peach Tea videos, I wish I could have included all of your comments, but for time constraints, there's just no way. So I've had to kind of group some of these together, and James's comment is sort of representative of what a few of you others kindly said, and I certainly appreciate it. Yeah, I want to include the whole movie. I wish I could watch the whole thing and there were not a problem with copyright and we could just enjoy this together. Now, once I get the Patreon up and running, we'll be able to do that. You'll be able to see full reactions, so I'm very excited about that. Unfortunately, I don't think this series will make it, but Hobbit should. But yeah, I wish that I could include more. Thank you for saying I've chose the scenes that you thought were important. That is certainly my intent. As you know from previous videos and from things I've said before, it's all me just trying to outrun YouTube and trying to outrun the copyright. And I don't disrespect copyright. I get it. People work hard for their material and they put a lot into what they should rightfully own. But it's not my intent to ever rip them off. It truly is to make it a transformative work of art in the sense that, if you could put it like art, but it's the way that like I just take the material, interpret it my way, and share it with you guys, and we have a conversation about it. I feel like that does make it transformative. Yeah, I have to abide by the rules. So thank you for saying I chose the right scenes. I hope I did. Going on next to Keegan Flick Parker. I love Keegan. Keegan always says the funniest stuff. And he wrote, well, she got back fast. Well, you saw how slow they were walking away. Okay, so he's talking about when I made the comment about Arwen, how when she turned around and she decided to ride back, and then all of a sudden she's just there. I was like, well, that, you know, good time, right? And then he made the fair point that like they're really walking away slowly. So I thought that was really funny. And you know, that was actually one of the things that got me was you guys told me so much about the scenes with Liv Tyler and how so many, I believe if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the material was in the appendices and it wasn't supposed to even be included. And then they made a lot out of it for the movie, which most of you seem to enjoy. I enjoyed it. So, that's good. Moving on next to Sam Watson. I'm dying at how dirty you're doing poor Oprah in this. Yeah, Oprah's fine. Oprah's fine. Okay, she can take it. But yeah, I joke with Oprah. I don't know why. For some reason, when I'm doing commentary, Oprah and Whitney Houston just come into my head, and I pick and Wendy Williams. Poor Wendy Williams. If you guys are watching the Harry Potter videos, I give her a hard time too. I don't mean to. They just make me laugh. They are ladies I love, so it comes from a place of love. It's an homage. She's fine. She can take a few hits from old David over here in Houston. Alexandria Shivalina. Your reactions make me so happy. Oh, thank you. Even more so with the decision to do a 3-parter for Return of the King. I've seen these movies dozens of times in the last 20 years, and every single time I see the beacons, I get goosebumps. Not least because of which the score, the visuals on their own are stunning too, and together they create this epic moment of hope, which is, I think, the central point of the story Tolkien wrote. Yes, 100% agree. Thank you, Alexandra, for saying that. I didn't know anything about the beacons. You guys were so good about not giving spoilers, but there were moments where you would say things like, oh, just wait till you get to Return of the King because of the, well, I won't say it, but hint, hint, spiders, like something like that, and it's totally fine. I know you guys get excited. I would too. And God knows if you watch some of my videos that I've done with Mark, I have a hard time not spoiling things, just kind of my thing. But I try, and so I get it. But yeah, I didn't know anything about the beacons. No one mentioned it. I obviously have not read the books, as we've talked about many times, so I didn't even know to be looking for that. That was about the first moment I cried, if I remember correctly, because again, as Alexandra points out, the music. The score from this film, so good, but especially that type of music they played, that cinematic sweeping when they lit the beacons, yeah, that definitely gave me the tingles, and I was like, yeah, I'm as far as not crying. I can already tell it's going to be a hard time. And incidentally, I was going to mention this when we get to the part about You Bow to No One, but I'll just mention it since we're talking about crying a little bit. Now that I'm looking back on the whole series, surprisingly, even though all of my tears should have come from Return of the King, Fellowship was where I first really teared up. I don't remember if you could see it on camera as much, but when Gandalf died, it was Elijah Wood's reaction. It was Frodo, the character, just the screaming and the slow motion. I always joke that when they put it in slow motion, it's their hint to us saying, hey, this is important, pay attention, right? And it was just all so good, but it was just that scream or that yell that just went down my spine and just made me instantly tear up. So that was actually, truth be told, the first moment I think I teared up in any of the Lord of the Rings movies. And I would say also, interestingly enough, the time that I probably should have cried or teared up but didn't was when they were in Balin's tomb and Gimli just falls apart and starts weeping at his cousin's grave. That should have pulled a couple of heartstrings with me, but I think I remember just watching it and being like, oh, okay, just go along with it. And so that was when I wish I had felt more of something. But yeah, definitely when Gandalf died in the beginning, it hit me pretty hard. So yeah, thank you, Alexandra, for that. Trekker34, when you finish these films, a really cool detail is that they were all filmed at the same time. Many of you said this, and not in sequence. So as you see the character's development, it wasn't shot that way, which is a huge tribute to the actors, agreed, for being able to show that they're bond at an early stage of filming. These movies were lightning in a bottle. Don't think anything will ever come close to it again. Nothing has in over 20 years. Yeah, definitely. Let me work backwards on this comment, starting with the last part. You don't watch these movies and say, oh, Lord of the Rings, that's just like XYZ. You just don't. It's a movie unto its own. Or really movies, I guess, the whole trilogy, if you were to put together. And a few of you mentioned that too. You were like, you should really watch this, thinking of it as one long movie, one long story. Instead of even broken it up like they had to do it. And I liked that perspective because it's true. And so, yeah, I really don't think there has been anything that would rival this that I can think of in scope, in scale, in just true craftsmanship of the art. It's just amazing. I mean, there have been great movies made, of course, but this one does stand out in a class of its own. Then going back to what he was saying about how they were all filmed at the same time. Yeah, many of you mentioned this as well. And that, some scenes were filmed before others were even cast and things like that. And that also is just truly amazing. That also is something that just blows me away, that they were so connected as a cast together. You don't get the impression that there was any kind of ill will behind the scenes or any kind of drama for that matter. So that's also something to be said about the cast and the crew. Okay, next up we have DHbenz. DHbenz writes, the point is made in the books that the ring had less of an evil effect on Bilbo. Because I'd ask about this. I'd say something like, does it have less of an effect on hobbits or something like that? I think I said previously. Because he began his ownership of the ring with an act of pity/mercy and did not kill Gollum when he had the chance. Whereas Gollum began his with an act of murder. Of course, that's actually a really good point right in front of my face. Didn't even think about that. That's a really good observation. And thank you, because that is something that definitely answers a question that I had in a very definitive way. So I really appreciate that, DHbenz. All right, so next up we've got Eduardo Tucker, one of my favorites. He writes, you have me spit my Coke Zero out, which, by the way, Coke Zero, love it, every time I watch your reactions. When the Oliphants show up, even Farmers hasn't seen that. I wonder how many people caught that. Thank you. Actually, that's just the first thing I thought. Obviously, you guys know I have no filter, very little filter anyway. Usually it gets edited out, so I'm kind of nervous about the full-length reactions when I start doing those because, okay. But I just kind of say whatever comes to my head, and that's just what popped into my head because of a major disaster happening. And then I realized that some of you around the world might not know what Farmers is. And I think someone even wrote in a comment to Eddie's comment, I don't know what Farmer, I don't get this joke. So Farmers is an insurance company, and they do a series of commercials here in the States about how they know how to cover everything because they've covered everything. And they'll show you every commercial is this bizarre thing that has happened that their insurance company has covered. So that's why I say watching this disaster looks like one of their commercials. And also Eddie, Penny Dreadful. Star Kitty 1. Oh, I love Star Kitty 1. She says great things too. Star Kitty 1 writes, I love how you're like best friends with these characters. I love that too. Shadowfax is always dramatic, but even he was like, oh, yeah. So I made a comment about Shadowfax, who I was calling, of course, the new Chanel horse up until I learned Shadowfax's name. And then I thought Shadowfax was such an awesome name, which someone else in the comments told me was the name of a 70s band. Awesome to that as well. So yeah, but I included this comment because I do feel like these characters are my friends. That's how much of a loser or awesome person I am, depending on how you look at it. I feel connected with these characters. I'm not kidding you guys. When I sat down to do this, and it hit me that this was the last Lord of the Rings video I was going to be doing, it really was a big deal to me because, and I'll just take a minute away from all this to tell you, when I first started doing this channel, I was cooking like sandwiches and shit, okay? I wasn't even going to do video reactions. I didn't think anyone wanted to see them. I liked watching them every now and then, but I didn't think it'd be anything that I would be any good at. And I realized that I love to watch movies. I love to watch TV. I have my whole life, but I've never seen certain things, and even big events such as Lord of the Rings went off my radar for some reason. So there was so much still to be seen, and I'm the only one in my house that watches movies and TV, really. Nobody else really watches around here, you know, me and the dogs. So it was a way for me to be able to share things with you guys. And like I said earlier, this would have been such a lacking experience if I had done this on my own. I got so much from doing it with you guys that it just made it a bigger experience than it should have been. And so I appreciate you saying that, Star Kitty 1, and I appreciate all you guys. Can I get choked up? Anyway, so sorry about that. It's an emotional experience, okay? It's more of an emotional experience than I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't just the movies, although the movies definitely that as well. These are characters that are written so well and done in such a way that you can't help but get attached. But that's not the element that really drove it home. The element that really drove it home was you guys. And I don't think I'll watch anything that will hit home as much as this has in a connection with other viewers like this has for me. So thank you. Thank you for that. And I know that for a lot of you, this will be the end of our road together. And so I appreciate everything you've done. And I didn't mean to get all like this in the middle. So we're just going to move on. We're going to move on. But thank you. Just know that thank you from the bottom of my heart. Appreciate it. Okay, so Katie. Hi, David. Another fantastic reaction. Can't even see now with my bitch eyes. Hi, David. Another fantastic reaction. Love seeing your emotions. Oh, here you go. Pop into the surface, Katie. Perfect timing. Quite low key by my standards, as I'm usually bawling as I watch these movies. Yeah. So contrary to what's happening right in front of you. I don't usually get that emotional. I don't usually get that emotional watching movies. I might shed a tear sometimes, but even in Still Magnolias, I didn't cry because I thought her haircut was so bad. I just couldn't really get emotional at that point. But yeah, this one hit home. As many have already explained what happened to Eowyn and Mary, and mentioned the Peter Jackson's cameo, right? We'll talk about that in a second too. I'll give you another little behind the scenes bit. In this shot where Shelob, you guys, you know. Now you know my pronunciation, so you'll have to forgive me. The giant spider, Katie knows me, the giant spider. Oprah is wrapping herself a little Frodo burrito, and Sam's arm holding the sword appears in the view. That is in fact Peter Jackson's arm. When they were filming this, he was actually on a different set shooting a different scene while having this Sam scene on his monitor, kind of keeping an eye on what was going on in big places, what it sounds like to me. He kept feeling that they didn't deliver the right shot as he wanted, so eventually he was like, F it, ran over onto that set, threw on Sam's shirt, grabbed the sword and other props, and did the shot himself. Yeah, that's actually a really cool tidbit. Thank you, Katie, for including that. That's obviously something I didn't know, as you guys have said in other videos, and we've talked about on the Spilling the Peach Teas prior to this. I need to watch the behind the scenes, and you guys are really pushing for that. So that really is something that before I wasn't honestly considering doing for the channel, but now I just might. If not that, maybe for the Patreon, because you guys have really indicated that it's something you want to see. So thank you, and thank you, Katie, for that tidbit. Okay, I need a little bit of this right now. Okay, next up. I don't usually like to use people's real names, but I don't think he'll mind. So Alex, his name is Alex. Alex writes, fun fact, the really ugly orc commander at 8 minutes and 29 seconds, which was in the second video, was deliberately made to look like Harvey Weinstein. That's amazing. Okay, not that I don't trust you, Alex, because you know I trust you. But I've gotten called out for just blindly repeating things that people have said in other reactions or in these Spilling the Tea segments. And so I double checked this and Googled it, and he's right. That apparently Elijah Wood said in an interview that the orc commander or lieutenant was based on Harvey Weinstein. So there you go. Next up, Brian Storm. Hey, Brian. Brian writes, slight correction. Theoden was Éomer and Éowyn's uncle, not their father. Love your actions. Yeah, sorry about that. It's a tough gig, okay? It's a tough gig. Doesn't seem like it would be, but I got the dogs up here. I'm trying to watch this. I'm trying to make sure the camera's going right. I'm looking over there to make sure it's the right angle. I'm not ugly with like a booger hanging out or something like that. I'm trying to listen, and this is some heavy material. So you are completely right. I think I referred to him as their father. He looked like a father figure to me, and they all kind of look the same. You know, as white people all look the same. And so I thought that was their father, but you are correct. It was their uncle. I did know that, and I honestly have been doing Theoden dirty this whole time. I forgot to mention him in one of the videos. I gave him some half-assed like memorial segment because I forgot to mention that he died and it was a significant death. But let me tell you something. From the kind of fake out transformation where he went from old, to young when the spell or the hex or whatever it was broken, and we saw his true self. And even when he was, commanding the armies and the amazing speeches he gave, I really did like that character. So he doesn't stand out right away when I think of my favorites, okay? That is reserved for your Gandalfs and for your Frodos and, of course, my other baby daddy, Orlando Bloom, and everything like that. But I really did like Theoden. Theoden, he was a good character, and he will go down as solid in my book. So thank you, Brian, for pointing that out. You are right. I was wrong. Brenda Anderson. Hey, Brenda. I think you're my favorite Lord of the Reactions reactor. God bless you. That means you've only seen 2 of us probably. So thank you for that. I'm glad not beat out the other person. Even more, when Denethor is leading his men carrying Faramir to the tombs, you hear him say, there is no hope for men. And then we see the single blossom on the white tree, the tree of the king. Remember Aragorn's exchange with Elrond? I give hope to men. I keep no hope for myself. Aragorn's name as a child growing up in Rivendell was Estel, the Elvish word for hope. There is hope for men, and he's on his way to Gondor, even as Denethor goes mad with despair. Yeah, and I actually remembered that, okay? So for all the things that I missed, I'm shocked that I did notice that, but I remember that exchange where they talked about the tree of the king, and I remember thinking to myself, yeah, that tree's not burning. I remember thinking to myself, there's going to be life in that tree yet, and then sure enough, there was. That was a good thing to see. All right. Last page. I'm going to take it slow, stretch this out because I don't want this to be over. Oliver Hollingdale. Hey, Oliver, how's it going? Oliver writes, oh God, here we go. I just started getting better. You bow to no one, gets everyone. These movies are perfection in cinema craftsmanship. 20 years on and nothing holds a candle to the magnitude that is the Lord of the Rings. Not even the Hobbit movies, which you will soon discover. So, yes, and this is a nice segue into Hobbit. I'll probably talk about it again at the very end because it'll be the way that I transition out of LOTR and into Hobbit. Yeah, nothing holds a candle to Lord of the Rings. It is in a category of its own. You bow to no one. Without a doubt, that was the most amount of comments I got on any particular subject in the whole series was you bow to no one. Maybe outdone with the whole he broke his toe when he kicked the helmet. It's a horse race. It's a horse race. But so many of you said that, and it really touched me when I read the comments that so many of you would say, I watched this with my dad and he cries and I cry. And I watched this, I've seen this 200 times and I cry every time. My God, how could you not? I was already crying when they all kind of got together in the end, when you start to see everyone there, you know? And then when they had that line, it's like, really, you really want to drive the knife deep? I guess you do, because that for sure did it. But that was a moment that obviously stands out among the whole series as one of my favorites. Okay, so next up we have Chandler Mccoy. Chandler writes, no one makes it past the you bow to no one scene without a tear. Now I know, I already talked about you bow to no one and I've mentioned it in a couple of other comments, but the reason I chose Chandler's in particular is because I do watch other reactors. I'm very supportive of other reactors. I watch a lot. There's only, like you guys probably have, there's a few that I really like that I watch a lot. But there is this one guy, and I agree with you. I don't see how anyone makes it through that scene without crying. But there was one reactor, and he did a great job. He was one of the reactors that I would say is more of just a passive, reactor. So he's the type where when he's watching something, he's not making dumb jokes like me and calling people by the wrong name and forgetting what relation they are. He's watching them and saying things like, oh, that's insightful. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's cool. You know what I mean? So there's a place for that, and I'm sure there are people who really like that. But when they got to the you bow to no one scene, they did it, and he just kind of reacted like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And like, that was it. That was it. Not a tear. And I mean, I read the comments, and he has a lot of fans, I think, because everyone said nice things. You could tell it's like the regulars, like they're his supporters and everything. And one person writes, oh my God, something like, this was the worst reaction to this scene I've ever seen. How could you not cry? Are you a robot? And it was really bad. But you could tell this was a hardcore Return of the King fan who came for a show, and he came to see tears. And when this guy responded with basically just like, that's really cool. I'm glad they did that. It's very respectful. Not what he was looking for. It just made me laugh. So apparently, Chandler, there is one person at least out there who does not cry in the you bow to no one scene. Papa Bear lives. The lighting, kind of Alexandria is saying, the lighting of the beacons is one scene that the score takes to a whole new level. So glad you mentioned it. Yeah. And again, echoing that because it can't be said enough. That scene was just so moving. The music and the beacons, you could have almost ended it right there and I'd been like, oh, so good. But obviously not. It was just really, really cool the way they shot that. That's one of those moments that was truly a standout indeed. Gilgalade writes, love your reactions. Please watch Troy or The Last Samurai. Okay, yeah, so I included this one. As you guys know from previous Peach Tea videos, not every comment I pull is about the movie itself. Sometimes it's about me or the channel that was mentioned on this comment page. So I just included it anyway to sort of go into it a little bit deeper. But yeah, I have seen Troy. So I don't think that'd be a good one for the channel, but I've not seen Last Samurai. And I think a lot of you like that. And what I wanted to use this comment was to segue into, I have an Instagram now for the channel, and I want you guys to please, direct message me, put it on the comments there or here, but I sometimes don't see them if they're older on the videos. But yeah, always on the Instagram page, go look and tell me anything you want me to watch, anything you think I should be seeing, because several of you have mentioned that about Last Samurai. So I would definitely be up for watching that. So I've made it a note on my my list of things to include, but any others, because you guys, I trust you. Like, we're all besties now, right? And I want you to tell me what you want me to watch. So please do that, and thank you in advance. Aegis Dinsing, or Dunsing, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you, is definitely my favorite line of the trilogy. So I'm having a hard time forgiving you for cutting it out of the reaction, LOL. but nonetheless, great reaction. You bow to no one definitely makes me emotional whenever I watch as well. Yeah, so this is back to previous comments about YouTube and copyright and what I get dinged for. I think I said, it might have been in the last Spilling the Tea video where I made the point that when I do a first pass at these videos, they're like 45 minutes long. And then by the time YouTube gets a hold of it, or I go back and I kind of edit out things I know that they're going to have a problem with, it whittles its way down to like more 25 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes 35. But God, yes, I apologize for anything I might have missed. Again, war scenes were tough. Speeches were tough. Because I think they do it on sort of a 10-second run, or I don't know how they do. I really don't know the rhyme or reason of how YouTube content ID system works, but I have seen that the more I include from like one scene or several scenes that are right together, I tend to get dinged. So yeah, I really apologize for that, Agus. But yeah, I'll try to do better in the future. Joe Selness. Joe writes, David, understood the danger of Aragorn looking into the Palantir, but I wish the movie had shown that Denethor also had a Palantir, and that was the instrument that Sauron used to destroy any hope he had, and God knows he did. He wasn't just a massive jerk. He was a jerk, but there was more to it than that. Yeah, several of you, thank you, Joe. Several of you pointed this out, and this is definitely one of those comments that is sort of, representative of more. That is why Denethor acted the way he did. I was confused about that in the beginning. I was just reading the book by its cover, and when I saw him, and I love that actor, by the way, John Noble, he is one of my favorites. I love him almost everything he does. So of course, this is no different. Great performance. But yeah, I had my questions about that. I just thought he was just sort of a cranky older guy. And then you guys said that there was definitely a rhyme and reason to it. So thank you for pointing that out, Joe, and everybody else who did as well. Okay, so we're coming up on the last few comments, and I chose these three because they kind of dealt with the closing of the movies, and I thought that might sort of parallel well. And we start off with Lelm Doctor Who writes, such an amazing journey with you. Found this channel through your Lord of the Rings reactions. This movie is known for its many endings, but I love it because I just hate when movies end abruptly. I love knowing what happens after, plus everyone bowing to the Hobbits gets me every time. See, again, everybody talks about that. Yeah, but I definitely wanted to pull this because I made the comment, I'm pretty sure I did, in the video where I said that I just kept thinking it was over. And every time there'd be another ending. And I'm like, okay, this is it. And then every time another ending. And now, out of the moment, now that it's all over and I have no more great Lord of the Rings movies to watch, I'm kind of thankful. I agree with you. I agree with you that like, it's nice to have multiple endings because it gives you a chance to say goodbye each time. However, considering that I was a crying mess by that point, internally, if you didn't see it as much on screen, it just made it harder. My God, you had the boat scene, then you had Sam with his family and just, all this stuff going on. So, and I also read the comments you left about Sam and his family. I didn't include that here, but several of you mentioned that. And you kind of were split on it. Some people said that was his actual wife and kids, and others said that no, that even though he's close to his wife, that actually was an actress, but that she was on set that day because he didn't want to offend his wife, even though he's an actor, of course, and everyone knows he's acting, but he's just such a stand-up guy that, Sean asked him that he wanted to be respectful. So I definitely appreciate you guys mentioning that. But yeah, I agree with you, Lelm Doctor Who. That was a nice opportunity looking back to have all the multiple endings to say goodbye to these characters. All right, next up, Barry Wade. This film has the best end credits I have ever seen, and nobody ever even mentions them in reaction videos. And I'm guilty of that. And I appreciate you including this comment because I have a bad habit of that. Unless it's Marvel movies where I know there's some sort of preview coming up in the end credits, I always just cut it off when it's done. I don't think that's anything you guys really want to see. So if that's something I need to be including, please let me know. I know it's tough if there's a song. Several of you mentioned songs. Because as you know, with the copyright, I can play maybe 3 seconds. But yeah, I will try to include more end credits in the future. So I appreciate that feedback, Barry. Finally, start crying again. Finally, Terry B writes, don't be sad. I got to watch these in the theater when they came out. 20 years later, I still watch and reread the books. And I learn something new each time I watch or read. That's one reason to love to watch reactors. To always seem to catch something I missed or think about it in new ways. And I think that is an amazing way to end this video and an amazing way to end these films because I have had a little bit of blueness since I've been done knowing that I can't experience them for the first time again, knowing that for a lot of us, our journey on this together is coming to a close. I really hope you will continue with me to watch Hobbit and continue on the channel in general. But I realize that for a lot of you, Lord of the Rings is your bag. It's what you want to see, and then you'll be moving on after this is over. But I appreciate so much you taking this time with me, what we've learned from each other, but more what I've learned from you. And I like what Terry says about how each time you read, each time you watch the movies, and indeed each time you talk about it with other people, you see it from a different perspective, and you get the information on different characters in a different way, which only makes the texture of this family that Tolkien has created for all of us even richer and something that we can all enjoy for years to come. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, and I will see you guys in The Hobbit. Have a great week.